Avinash. I think I was a little bit actually reluctant and busy to have this session, and I think thanks for your. I think we have limited time, so let me quickly go on with the next slide. And here, actually, I'm telling my photo journey as well as I will talk something about the basics of the photography, and then I think we can discuss about the wildlife photography. So let me talk about my photo journey. So as everybody has an interest in photography in his school days, so I was also having a lot of interest in my school days in photography. But at that time, we were having all those 35 Mr. black and white old cameras, and the process was a little bit longer. You have to buy the film, and there were 35 or 24 shots, and you have to finish all those photos, and then there was a process of developing it. So now the world had changed, and I think it's really great that immediately you can see the result. But that's how my journey started. And I would like to mention that my cousin, Miss Amlata's brother Vishal, he was Miss little bit elder to me, and he was also interested in photography. So we both used to experiment a lot in our school days, and I think Vishal, he has done some courses in photography, so that also helped me a lot. So during those days, there were no internet, or the getting information was a little bit difficult. So I used to buy different books on photography, and I used to follow the instructions or the information given in those books about the photography. And then, uh, as I think Avinash, you mentioned that when I went to college, I had a friend. His name was Aslam. The guys from Srirampur, they might be knowing him. He was a journalist in Srirampur. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago because of cancer. But he was also interested in photography. So both of us actually took one instrument where we can develop the photographs at home. So we created one dark room in one of our small room over there in small house, and we did some experimentation. Those photographs were not that much great, but it was actually good learning experience as well as exciting experience. And then I think also in my, I think you guys I think Avinash should talk about my engineering days. So during those days, as I said, that I was always interested in art and photography. So I used to be a very active member of our engineering college art gallery. So we used to do different art festivals in our engineering college. So then slowly I started actually my journey with digital camera. I think back in 1999, or I think 2000, I think, when I purchased my first not 2001, I think. Yeah, no, actually at that time it was a Yashica film camera, but I think in 2003 or 4, I started with my digital camera. So it was small, point and shoot camera, but the experience was really great because we were able to see those results immediately. And I used to go on a walking trek, and then used to photo different objects. So at that time, I think internet was actually getting popular, and then there were a lot of blogs over the internet. So whatever photography I learned, those blogs were really helpful. Nowadays, there are a lot of YouTube videos. So for all the new generation people, I would suggest that just follow those blogs, follow those videos. It will really help you. So then what happened that slowly I was a little bit more interested in photography, and then through those blogs I got interested more into what is the aperture, what is the ISO, what is shutter speed, how we can manipulate those things or adjust those things to take a better photograph. So then I slowly migrated towards a photo again, it's a point and shoot camera, but it was having those advanced settings. So I bought that Canon camera, and then early for I think 3 or 4 years, I was doing a lot of photography, even though it was a point and shoot camera. But I used to manipulate those settings, and it helped me to learn those settings. Then slowly I moved into DSLR, and I think back in I think 2008 or 9, I think 8, I guess, I bought this Canon 40D, and since almost now it's a 13 or 14 years, I'm using this camera, very sturdy camera. But now I think I'm thinking of upgrading it to full frame camera. This, I think last year, in 2019, Canon introduced that camera. Still thinking, so let's see. So, uh, as I said that I will be talking about the exposure triangle, or what is the ISO, then aperture and shutter speed. Right now, I won't talk much on this slide because it is little bit confusing. So let me go back to my previous slide. So I think you won't get confused on that slide. So if you see, there are different movements we do photography in our life. Might be you're on a beach and you have a point and shoot camera or even a mobile camera, and you would like to take some photographs of water, or might be sunset, sunrise, or your kids are playing, you would like to take some photos. Or sometimes you are at your kids high school or kids primary school, there is a sports day and you would like to take a photograph. But what happens that as Neil said, that what we see and what we capture many times it is different, and it depends on the camera setting. So sometimes we capture a photo on a beach where we are seeing a beautiful sunset. If flash is on, it is overexposed. You actually the photo is completely away. Sometimes you switch off your flash and you take a photo, but what happens once you see the photo, either it is too dark or it is too blurry. So you are wondering exactly what happened, and that's where this ISO comes into picture. So let me go to that next slide. Just give me a second. So now I'm talking about the ISO. So when you are thinking about the ISO, so or when you are thinking of the photography, just think that when you are thinking about the night photography or the low light photography, then you should correlate with ISO. So exactly what is the ISO? So ISO is the sensitivity of camera's sensor to light. So when we talk about the camera, so in early Mr. Film camera days, we used to have 35 film or small film, and when we used to buy those films, there were numbers on those films. I think 100, 200, 400. I remember at least these three numbers. At that time, I was not aware what those numbers are. Might be the photographer or friend, whatever he suggests. We used to buy those frames, those films. So those films were actually uh, that number was showing the sensitivity of that photographic film to the light. So in digital camera world, so that film is replaced by our cameras. So what is happening that this ISO setting, it shows the sensitivity of our sensor towards the light. So in ISO setting, if you see over here, I have kept put the screenshot of ISO. So there are different numbers, auto 100, 200, 400. So in simple term, when that ISO setting is very low, might be in the range of 100 or 125. So the sensor is very much sensitive to the light, and as that number grows, then that sensitivity becomes low. So what is happening in simple term, when you are taking a photograph, you just need to remember that if uh, you are taking a photograph at night, try to have that ISO might be in the range of 100 or 1000, or might be at higher range. When you are taking a photograph in a daylight, try to have that number and lower side. How it impact the photos? When ISO is low, might be in the range of 100 or 120, 150 or 160, sorry. So at that time, the photo is very sharp. As the number grows higher, there are grains, but still you are able to capture those photos in a low light condition. So on this slide, I have actually presented a photo which I took a couple of years back at night time, might be midnight or around 1 a.m. or so. So I use a tripod, and the ISO setting was higher, and I think the shutter speed was also very low. So this picture shows that if you increase your ISO number, so you are able to capture night photographs without a flash. So let me show a couple of photos I took in low light condition by increasing the ISO. This is one of the photo where actually we went for a state fair, and at that in the low light condition, I was not having a tripod with me, so try to keep the camera stable. and I was able to capture this photo in that state fair. The another photo is again, I think I went on some beach in Goa. So during that time, I was capturing the sunset. And if you can see that by keeping the ISO value at a higher level, you are able to capture the photo and even without losing the essence of the photo. So now I'm talking, I will just move on the next topic. It is the shutter speed. So think of the situation. You are at a sports day of your kids' high school, and you are capturing some photos. So what is happening that many times because of the motion or the actions, those photos or those hands or the legs of those kids, those are blurry. Or might be you are playing with your kid on a beach and you try to take a photo. Those actually actions were a little bit blurry. That's where the shutter speed comes. So if you see shutter speed, how it plays important role in action photography. So exactly first, what is shutter speed? So shutter speed, it is the amount of time your camera shutter is open. So if you see your camera, and as shown in this screenshot, there is one setting over there where they have given the number that 1/100 or 1/400 might be, if at higher very fast shutter speed, it could be 1/1000 or something. So when you are talking about, when you are not talking, but I would say when you are thinking of any action or action photography, then think of the shutter speed. And at least in Canon, there is a setting TV. So you go into that setting and change the your shutter speed, and all the other settings will automatically get changed. So might be if you are doing action photography at school sports day, you can keep your shutter speed at 1/400 or a little bit the more value at the bottom. So the amount of time is very less, and you are able to freeze your action. So this shutter speed also, it also plays an important role sometimes when actually you don't want to freeze the action, but you want some flowness in that picture. Might be I will go on a couple of slides next, and then I will tell you. But if you see the picture over here, so here with all those water droplets and our action, those are frozen. So yeah, this is the again another photo my wife took, and here actually it was, as I said, it was just a point and shoot camera. It was not a DSLR camera, but she were able to freeze our action. I was playing with my daughter. Again, this picture I took in Goa. Yeah, it was with DSLR. So if you see, I took this picture in the morning light. So might be it was, I think, just the sun was actually rising, and with low angle and the water. So I was able to create this dramatic effect. And by using your shutter speed as well as angle of your photograph, you can get results like this. So I was talking about the another aspect of shutter speed. So shutter speed. So if you go to any waterfall and if you try to take a photo with your normal auto mode, that waterfalls actually the action is frozen. So you won't see that flowing effect in that waterfall. So what you need to do, you need to decrease your shutter speed as less as possible. I think for this photograph, my shutter speed was, I think, around 2 seconds or so. But the important part for this slow speed photography is that your camera needs to be very, very stable. Generally, we recommend to have a tripod. So particularly this photograph I took in New Hampshire. So at that time, I was not having a tripod with me. So I put my camera on the ground, I think on one stone. Then I used the timer of, I think, a 10 seconds or 2-second timer. And I clicked and I just actually waited for 2 seconds. Then it clicked. After that, actually, I was able to capture this photograph. So by using shutter speed, either you can freeze the action for sports photography, or you can create some flowing effect in your photos. So next is about the aperture. So this is the photo of my daughter. If many times we see many portrait photographs or photograph of flower or any object where the object is very sharp, crisp and clear, and background is very blurry. We always think that, okay, how I can actually take this photograph nowadays with Apple phone, we can have this portrait mode, but by using camera, how you can take it. So that's where aperture comes into picture. So what is aperture? So aperture is the size of opening of your lens when photo is taken. So when you go to your camera and there is aperture setting in Canon, it is AV setting. You see different settings like f1.8, f2.2, and I think f8.2, and so on. So what is happening that when that aperture is open wider, when aperture is open wider, that f value is on lower side, might be f1.8, 1.2, or 3.2. So your camera focuses more on the object in picture and the background is blurry. So when you like to take this kind of photograph, try to keep your aperture as much as open, or the other way, try to keep that f value as low as possible. The other aspect of aperture opening, it is the sharpness. Sometimes for landscape photograph, so you would like to have everything very crisp and clear at far end. So that's where actually you can increase the aperture as much as possible. Again, based on the light condition. If it's a low light condition, you cannot go at a higher value. But if it is proper sunlight, then you can increase that number, that f8 number, and have that aperture opening as low as possible, and you can have sharp photographs like this. Yeah, let me tell one thing. Actually, I forgot one point on this. So when I was talking about this photograph with portrait and blurry background, generally prime lens, we have prime lenses. Those are 35 mm lens without any zoom. So initially I was wondering that nowadays people are having lot of zooms. So who would be preferring that 35 mm lens? But I would say for me, that is the best lens. That is the cheapest lens you will get in the market. But the kind of results you will get, I always get my best results by this lens. So I would recommend this prime lens 35 mm lens for all those portrait photographs. So if you see, this is again the flower, the background is very blurry, very soft. So you can get this kind of effects by using the higher value of aperture, that is the f number is on lower side. If you see this photograph, actually I took this photograph while I was driving. The car was, there was a motion in the car. It was a little bit slow speed, but still because of the low aperture, I was able to capture the sharpness at the far end. This is again another photograph where I have kept the aperture at very small opening, and that value is at higher side. So this is another cheat sheet. When I will share this PDF, so you can use as a reference, that if you would like to take a portrait photograph, then might be you can keep that f value at 1.4 or f2, that level. For a landscape, might be you can keep at f8, f11, even at f22 or 32. So on that image they have given that if when the that f value is at lower side, then the background is blurry, and slowly at once that f8 number goes a little bit higher, everything is very crisp and clear and sharp. Same is for this ISO. So if you see that ISO, it is 1/10,000. So you are able to capture, even if in a low light condition, how slowly if that ISO value increases, then you can see how it goes. Sorry, I was talking about the shutter speed. So similarly for the shutter speed, when that shutter speed is around 1/10,000, so you are able to freeze the action, and slowly when that shutter speed that value is more, so the shutter is wide open, then you can see the blurriness in that photo. But sometimes you need it to capture like the photograph of waterfall. And about the ISO, again, say I mentioned that if ISO value is 100 or 50, so there is more clarity in the photo. As the ISO value increases, there are grains, but in low light condition, you can have those ISO number at higher value. So you can refer this cheat sheet. It's very simple. So let me talk about wildlife photography. I'm just wildlife photography. I will try to move a little faster. I think I have taken almost 30 minutes for this. So wildlife photography. So first thing about wildlife photography is the lens. because you cannot have photography with your normal lens. Generally, you will need a telephoto lens, and uh, as the you are zooming at very far distance, so you will need a image stabilizer. So for some cameras, that stabilizer is inbuilt in camera. For Canon, it is in a lens. So whenever you are buying a lens, telephoto lens, sometimes you will get at a cheaper rate, but at least Canon lenses, but there is no image stabilizer. So make sure that you will have an image stabilizer in those lenses. Then how should be your approach? So I would suggest to keep low profile, protect yourself, and be patient. So the photo which I am showing in this slide, so I took this photo in Mount Rushmore, and there were always instructions given on that road, that don't get out of your car. But I was very young. I just started my wildlife photography at that time. So I came out of the car. I started taking pictures, but that mama bison, she was more protective about her baby. So after some point, she got irritated and she tried to chase me. So I was lucky that I was able to come in my car immediately. But that's why I said that try to keep low profile, don't disturb them, protect yourself. Then what should be the best timing for the wildlife photography? Early morning is the best time, because for us our day starts in the morning. For wildlife, their actual, I won't say day, but still day starts in the evening. And the early morning time, these animals, they again start going deep into the jungle. So that is the time you can capture them. If you are little bit late, might be you won't see any animals over there. And also because of early morning, you will get a really beautiful light effects. Uh, when you are capturing any wildlife of animals, try to capture their expressions in their eyes, because for other than their expression in their eyes, there won't be any other expression. You will get sometimes if they are angry or they are yawning or something, but mostly try to focus your camera on their eyes. Use right settings. So I have given some settings over here that if because generally wildlife animals, they are moving, so try to keep your shutter speed might be for a fraction of second. As they are moving, you need to have a continuous autofocus. Try to shoot with a low angle, so that on the background you will see vacant sky or something, and your object will pop up in that photo. As I said, that focus on the eyes of the those wildlife animals. So let me go on the next one is the composition. That is also important. I think Neil spoke about the composition. So this is the photograph I took in Gir jungle in Gujarat. So again, here I was talking about keeping a low profile. For this Gir wildlife photography, I was in an open jeep. So I was quite safe, but this lion, he was just sitting calmly over there, and I was continuously pointing my camera towards him, and I was shooting him. So he got at one point a little bit irritated and tried to move towards me. I think he just made those actions. He did not actually move towards me, but I was very much scared. Immediately, I started looking at different side, and then I think I moved my camera. So I was safe, but again, I'm saying that your safety is really important. So try to be safe and try not to disturb those wildlife animals. Again, as I said, the timing is very important. You need to be patient. So we were there and not on that spot for I think 5 minutes or so. So I was able to capture this photograph. And if you see, because the camera was focused on his eyes, so still I was able to capture the details of his tongue, tooth, and everything. Again, these are some of the photographs I took from those gear trip. Here you can see the morning light. I said that if it's a morning light or evening light, you will see a really beautiful light effect on your in your photos or on those objects. Here you see the eyes of this monkey. So I was able to capture the expression in his eyes. This is again one of the photograph. Again, I focused my camera on this on his eyes, and I was also able to capture. Again, here the patience is important. And many times when we think about the wildlife photography, every time you don't need to go into a jungle. There are different opportunities. Might be you can go to your backyard, or might be you can go to some zoo or something. This photo, I would love to actually capture similar photo in a natural habitat, but this photo was captured in Pune in the snake park in Katras. About this photograph, when I was in Pune, so I was just taking a walk in my apartment society, and there was one open plot. I think a lot of grass was there in the month of July or so, and nobody was going over there. So I saw some butterflies over there. So immediately I went back to home, and I came back, and then I was able to capture. There are 4 or 5 photographs I'm going to share in that area. So that's why I'm saying that you don't need to go actually in jungle or anything. You can see, means you can capture different photos around you. This is again this photo I took in my backyard in Pune. This is where when I was in a trip in Goa. So we were actually having lunch at one place, and when I saw this bird, then immediately I took my camera and was able to capture this. I think somewhere in US, I think I took this photo in the backyard. Yeah, thanks guys. I tried to finish my session in time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Abhinay. You rightly said what we see and what we capture should be the same. That's a really good message you did, and you talk about all the settings, aperture and uh, ISO setting, shutter speed. Thank you. Thanks for all those details uh, about all this telephoto lens and all the details. Thank you. So now I will request Sagar to start his experience, to share his experience.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen.
Yep, let me make you co-host. And FYI, we'll share all these PDFs along with you. So no worries on that.
So are you able to hear me and see my screen?
Yes, your voice is a little bit low. If you can make it slightly up, it's good.
I have made it to the max. Is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Sagar Kamble. I come from Ahmednagar. In the city I used to stay, I used to live in Hatampura. I don't know if you know about it. It's close to the Aitihastik Vastu Sangralaya. I spent my childhood there. I studied in the VK Patil Engineering College in Vietghat, and then I moved to Tokyo, Japan in 2002, and I'm since working here for the last 18 years. So I think the whole idea of having this session started when during the lockdown, people started sharing their uh, photos, and the idea came up, and Avinash took it to himself to arrange a session to get the thoughts presented to everyone. So I think let me thank Avinash to arrange this session, and I think the theme was just to walk through as how did you get into photography, and maybe provide some inputs or some tips to people who are really interested into this. So I would just walk through how I came and started doing photography, and then provide some tips which might be helpful. I don't think I'm a pro at this, but the experience that I have might be good to share with people like you. Yeah, so let me start, take you back to 1984. I remember seeing this photograph in one of the newspapers. It was a very tragic tragedy where people died in Bhopal due to the gas leak. And I remember, my father and their friends talking about it, and I saw this photograph. But as in those days, we did not have this social media, internet, so I couldn't really get who was the photographer who captured this image, but it left a very long lasting impact on me. And I had those old cameras a black and white camera which my father had, and it came into my hands just because it was not working. So they made sure that there's no use of that camera, and then it came to my hand. And I was very curious as to know how does this whole camera work, how does it capture pictures and prints it out on paper. But uh, I think in those days, photography was a very, very costly hobby. You needed money, which was not a common thing in those days. So I just had this thing in my mind, which never got a chance to come out, and I continued with my studies. But as I moved on into my college days, internet was the thing, and you could get information at your fingertips, and it was very interesting. So the one of those days, I just remembered about the photograph, and I started searching about it, and I found out that Raghu Rai, who is one of leading Indian photojournalist and photographer, was the man behind this photograph. And in those days when you are a kid, these things which impact you immediately make you feel that these people behind it are your heroes, and he immediately became my hero. So I started searching more about him, and the more I searched, I was very amazed by his work. I would really suggest you also go back and try to see what work he has done. So he worked with different uh, for newspapers in India, also worked with the Magnum Press, and has done a very decent job in street photography as well as in photojournalism. So I got a lot of books from the shops here in Tokyo with his photographs, and tried to study those photographs. I'll just share some glimpse of his photographs, which really impressed me. So I think this is something which he took in the Mumbai Central station. So this is a very impactful photograph. I think when we talk about photography, they say that a photo is worth 1,000 words. So it's a universal language. You don't need to explain a photograph. It should talk to you. It should immediately connect with the person who is seeing the photograph. And everybody has a different takeaway from the photograph. So your work is to just catch that moment and then leave it for everyone to have their own point of view of the photograph. So I think the best way to do is to look at different photographs and try to get a story behind it, or try to weave your own story behind that photograph. So I looked at different works, and it really made me interested in saying that can I also create that kind of an magic, looking at their photographs. Look at this second, which is I think somewhere near the Mumbai airport, in the slums. He has taken this photograph. This is also on the beach of Mumbai. So street photography is like really intimidating. You have a lot of chaos around yourself, and you need a lot of patience. You don't know where to start from. So there's a lot of challenge when you talk about street photography. This is from some of the streets that he has taken. His work mostly lies in India, where he has captured the Indian tradition, culture, the emotions of Indians, which are, to be frank, very different to other countries. Like when I try to do street photography in Japan, I really miss these kind of moments which you can easily capture in India, or you can easily be present in these kind of moments and try to capture it. But it's very difficult when you talk about Japan, where it's a totally different culture, but it has its own pros as well. This is somewhere in Varanasi that he has captured. So you know there are emotions which can, if you look at the eyes of that kid, I think that tells you the whole story of the photograph. At this point, when you look at this photo, you see there is nothing can buy that smile. You don't need money, you don't need food, you don't need anything. The happiness of that child is priceless. So capturing that moment, I think the satisfaction that a photographer would get from capturing this photo is too much, I mean, of value, and you cannot compare it with anything. This, I think, is again from Mumbai, where you see all the chaos behind this person and his calm and sleeping. So two different emotions in the same photograph, which make it very interesting. So these are some of the glimpses of the photos that I studied from Raghurai, and that really attracted me towards street photography. So these are also some of the portraits that he has captured. So if you look at the portraits, I think the most important thing to capture is the emotions of the person. If you look at the singers, you see the emotions. If you look at the child, it's again the emotion that is the main theme of the photograph. At the top corner, no, this is some portrait photography of famous celebrities. So you need to capture and convey the whole personality in a photograph. So this is a very good example of Bahasaheb Thackeray's photograph that he has taken. And a person who doesn't know about him, looks at this photo and understands what are his beliefs, where he comes from, what is his personality. The photo of Shivaji Maharaj, Shiv Sena's Wag behind him, the cigar in his hand showing how, what kind of a personality he is, his eyes, and that's a the whole story behind this photography. This, I think, it's a very very difficult art to make sure that your photo conveys all these things. We very well know who Bahasaheb Thackeray is, and I think when we look at this photo, you feel satisfied that whatever as a person he is totally communicated through this photograph. So you can understand how much study he has done about this person, and how he actually got this printed on this photo and conveyed to everybody. So I think that that's a very very difficult art to really replicate. But I think we don't need to go into that details. We think photography is a hobby, and if you replicate even 5% of what these great photographers are doing, you have done your job. So coming back to the journey, this photography interest was developed due to the first photograph that I saw in 1984. But I got my first chance to purchase my camera in Japan in 2002. It was a small point and shoot camera, but having all the features, really gave me a good hand at taking different pictures, analyzing them at the same time. After that, I moved on to a DSLR, because I thought, uh, DSLRs are the thing that really capture good camera photos. Point and shoot are just for beginners, but that's not the case. Uh, then I got different photography books, as I said, and tried to study them. And then I tried to skill up my work. So these are some of the photographs that I would like to share. I went to Varanasi for a 5 or 6 day trip, sometime 4 or 5 years back. So this is one of the ghats where I took this photograph. Tried to again replicate what the work Raghurai did, where you capture the whole chaos, the emotions around the place that you are in. This is also a photograph of people sitting on the ghat, everybody having different emotions. And I think this is the same presentation I gave in AIG few weeks back during the lockdown period, and people really enjoyed. And this photos really communicated them the culture, the day-to-day life of people in India. And I got so many questions around and so many queries. I was really happy that I could at least make the people around in my company aware of what India is, what is the culture, how are the how is the day-to-day life in India through these photographs. This is a photo that I took from my office, and the building that you see is the Tokyo station. I think there was a lot of discussion in the first two sessions about the basics of photography, and Neil and Abhinay really shared how to take different photos. So here it was a low shutter speed photo. So if you see the lines on this road, they are nothing but the headlights or the backlights of the cars moving around. So you don't actually see the car on the photograph, but the trails of the light are left behind. So using your camera, manipulating the different functions gives you very amazing photographs. So please try to explore the camera, the settings. Even if you get weird photos, you'll learn something out of it. This is again from Varanasi. I tried to take some, portrait photos. So one of the sadhus sitting there, I talked with him. I made him comfortable, and then I clicked a few photographs, and I thought this was something I could share uh, on my profile. This is my daughter. Uh, she was my guinea pig. I used to, ask her to pose when she was a small kid, and I tried to capture photos and study more on my portrait image capturing. There is a rule of thirds where you try to divide your photo into 9 sections, and the 2 lines that are in between, you try to keep the focus of the image in that area. So if you look at the eye, that is the center of that photo. So that, I think, as a technical thing, if you keep the main subject of your image in the by the rule of thirds, it gives a very good angle to the whole photo, and it is pleasing on the eyes of the person who actually sees the photograph. This is again a street photography that I did in Tokyo, where I used the light of these automated vending machines, where a old man was trying to buy something, and I was happy to get his attention to the camera, and I clicked it at that moment. So I got an eye-to-eye contact, which makes it a very interesting photograph. And the lighting in this photograph is also, a thing which makes it more attractive. This is again in the streets of Tokyo. There's a cultural area called Asakusa, and there they still have this man pulled carts where people try to enjoy the traditional way uh, Tokyo or Japan was in the earlier days. So I was also again lucky to get an eye contact with this person when I took this photograph. So portrait photography is basically, you should have the subject, communicating with the person who is watching the image. That makes it more effective. If I would have this person, looking somewhere, the there would not have been any communication between the photo and the person who is looking at that photograph. So when you take portrait photographs, make sure that the eye contact remains there, which attracts the person looking at the photograph. This is again at the Tokyo station. This was a bit of contrast. I was really impressed by the chaotic atmosphere around Tokyo station. A lot of cars and people moving around at high pace, and there was this taxi with an old taxi driver sitting in it and having his small light lit up in the taxi, which put some light on his face, and the other area keep was totally dark. So I think that is the main theme, where it gives a very good direct direction to the person viewing the photograph directly to the subject of the photo. This is again, somewhere in Pushkar, I suppose, where I was trying to capture the normal day-to-day life on the streets. And I think Rajasthan and the surrounding areas are now very beautiful to photograph. You have lovely colors, people with different characters around on the streets. If you look at this photo, you'll see each person having a different personality, and there is so much chaos behind, which really gives a very good composition to your own photograph. There's a person moving around who is a bit blurred at the end of the image, which also adds some more magic to your photograph. I think mm, what is also more important is that you get a very clear image when you talk about street photography. Every area of your photograph should have a very clear image. So I think if you must have learned from the previous sessions, where the aperture settings is important, where I kept it around 8 to 9 over here to get details of each and every areas while taking street photography. So this is a combination of what photographs I shared with you. I think looking at these photographs, you could have got some understanding of what it is like to take the street photographs or portraits. And then I think life came to a full circle for me when I was on my trip to Rajasthan, and I suddenly met Raghurai in the streets. So I was really, so much overwhelmed. I just talked with him. I showed him my camera, the different lenses I was carrying, and I thought he would be, very happy to look at it. But the best part was that, he told me, are you into street photography? And I said, yes, yes, I'm in street photography, and that's because of you. So he said, why are you carrying all this baggage? And I looked at him, and he was, having just one camera with a single lens, a wide lens, and that's it, nothing else. So that's the lesson I learned within a minute talking to him, that, you don't need all these bells and whistles along with you. Just take a small camera, a small lens, and move around. It's your creativity. Let your creativity come out, and that will give you good images. The camera will not give you good images. Today, if you talk about cameras, even your mobile camera is much, much more capable than what people had in the earlier days. So don't invest much in these gadgets. Keep it as simple as possible, and try to take as many photographs as possible. So that's about my journey, and talk about the street photography as well as the portrait photographies. I think to summarize on the street photography, I would say that keep your gear to minimal. uh, when you talk about street photography, it's a huge canvas. You have the whole world around you. It's moving all the time. It's very overwhelming. So decide what is the area that you want to shoot your images. Go and look at that place, see, and try to see the image, and see which is the spot you should sit at. That will give you a very good composition background. And then let the whole environment move around, and try to take a picture of the moment that will convey some message to the people who will be watching your photographs. Study the different composition angles that you have around. So you can make sure that the background is also communicating along with the subject that you're talking about. So you stay still at a particular position. You might have to stay there for hours, but that's the patience that will pay you. And make sure that you don't just capture one photo. I did that mistake in my earlier days. I used to go out and take a few photos and come back home, trying to see that I'll get a very good image. And I used to be really disappointed with what I got. But then the thing I learned is that, you need to keep on clicking, clicking, and clicking. You don't need to spend money these days with digital cameras. It's just the chip that you're putting in will, capture all these photos, and you can delete unwanted. Believe me, if I take 200 photos, I'm having only 2 or 3 photos worth sharing out of it. And that is also being, very optimistic. As I said, patience is the key to taking photographs. And when you talk about street photography, a wide angle lens is the only way to go around. Keep the aperture 5.6 or above, and then you're good to go. And use Adobe Lightroom. I use it. It's a good tool because, although you take images, we have got our eyes, which is the best lens we have in the world. It adjusts itself and gives you a very clear image. But these cameras, they have lenses they cannot adjust well with the surrounding lighting. So you need a post editing tool which will make your photographs a bit better than what they are actually captured when you take it directly from the camera. And for portrait photographies, I would say that the lighting and the distance from the subject is the key to taking a very good portrait photography. Composition, rule of thirds, as I said when I showed my photographs, that's also one thing you should keep at the back of your mind. Once you do that purposefully for your first few days, it will become a habit for you and come out unknowingly when you try to compose the image. And I would say prime lenses of around from 50 to 75 are the best to go for portrait photography, keeping the aperture between 2.8 and 5.6. And again, Lightroom is the tool that you can use to just adjust them at the end of taking your photographs. So I think that was a brief talk about my photography journey, my work that I've done as street photographer, and some tips for you. And I hope that you liked it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sagar, for all the details and all about your street and portrait photography. Also, thank you for sharing Raghurai's journey, because we normal person don't know like who is good photographers and what is their skill set. So thank you for sharing that story also. as you rightly said, capturing street photography really needs a patience, because you need to get in the right time, in the right place. So it's really a challenging job in that crowdy environment. Also, you shared your Varanasi experience. That's amazing. We loved that photos. Also, rule of third and all those details. So thank you. So now I will ask Nilesh to share his experience in photography.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Nilesh.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Yeah.
Sure. Let me make you co-host. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
And thank you, Nilesh, because it's 11 o'clock in India. So your time is also important.
No issue, no issue. Yeah. Is my presentation visible to all?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening to some people. Basically, I am from Pune right now. My hometown is in Parner Taluka, Alkuti, which is 100 kilometers from Pune. I am introduced to the GlobalNagari when I was in Honda in Columbus, Ohio. So I was in I am not as a pro photographer, as a hobby photographer, you can say. Like I said, in this picture is like a camera. For me, it is like I click the picture to see the good time, to stay away from the negatives, and if anything it is coming in the negative in the mind, take another click and become happy. That's the main thing for me as a photographer or as a photography journey. This is like basically I was always an like initially before turning to as a photographer hobby, I am like more interested in the traveling, going into the Ghats, Western Ghats, going down to the ports or explore the new areas. So I was doing that during my college days, after the college days. So in 2007, after the college days, when I went to the Shivtargarh, which is the famous for one of the area in near to the Pune. This picture I taken from the point and shoot camera while I was sitting on the back seat of the two-wheeler. When I taken this picture, I was never thought it will come in a good way. But when I open that into the computer and when I see this picture, I thought this is like a where you can still, when you don't have the good gadget or anything, but sometimes the timing and the location also matters to take the picture, and it also luck where you can get the good picture or good lighting conditions. So that was a one first, like when I started small taking the photographs for the landscapes. But really, I actually become the fan of the photography when I see this exhibition in Pune for the 1,000 Smiles. The Sagar have organized this one exhibition. They asked the photographers to click the smiles of the Punekars. And this picture is like they have collected almost more than 25,000 photographs, complete Pune city, and they shortlisted the thousands photographs. It was like, if you see these people, they are doing their regular job or the regular work, but when the photographer asks initially, they will never smile as a natural smile. But it is like a skill behind that photographer who make them smile. And this is like basically is turning a very good impact on the person who is watching this photograph. So this was actually, I was very impressed with this exhibition. And this actually introduced me to the one group called as a Photographers at Pune. There are very good photographers in this group. Like this is the Soumitra Inamdar's photograph, or this is the Anand Jadhav, or this is the Pankaj Jarekar, this is Anup Gande, or this is Rahul Bulbule. Basically, these photographers are there in the like in Maharashtra. They are famous for doing the different kind of genre in the photography. these basically they do this task as a hobbyist. Some are professionals, but most of the people are doing the hobbyist as a like similar to us. They are working and doing these different photography events or different you can say workshops as a hobbyist photographers. So I introduced to them, and I am associated, or I am following them from last 7 to 8 years now. These are the I started doing the capturing the pictures. Like I said, I am more actually into the traveling also. So if you see this picture, it's basically from the Torna port. This is the Sinhagad port, which is near to backyard of my housing society, you can say. This is the Ganpatipure beach. This is the beach in the Tampa, Florida. So more you travel, you will get a more different kind of, you can say, the locations, the or scenery, you can say. This is, I also like to click the, you can say the urbanization or the different kind of buildings or architectures. This is the place where I'm living in Pune right now, another city. This is the Chicago scape from the from the sky tower. This is the landscape of the Manhattan. This is the landscape of the Lavasa city near to Pune. This is the picture the cityscape, complete cityscape of the Chicago and the Miami. If you see these pictures, these are not taken by one shot. So it was like, this is like a trick I was get introduced during the these photography sessions with the photography of Pune. We cannot capture the, if we don't have the wide angle camera, we cannot capture the complete cityscape in a single image. So we need to have the take the number of clicks at the same place, sitting at one place, and join it together to become this as a single photograph. You'll not imagine, but this is actually taken by mobile and joined also in the mobile. So it is not like you need actually every time DSLR to capture the cityscape also, or a wide angle photographs. These are the some of the clicks which I had taken. This is actually one of the favorite places near to the Ohio, where we have every year there is a cherry blossom festival. This is in the Ohio. I captured the storm of the during the winter time, and this is the slow shutter of the waterfall near to the Ohio, near the Hocking Hills. And this is the picture which I taken into the Rameshwaram. This is actually the tallest tower in India right now, which is called as the TV tower also. And this is the waterfall which is near to the Pune, which I taken in around 2010 or 11 time. So I will move to the slow shutter speed photography basically. This is basically when you are going to the waterfall, seeing the waterfalls. I always was keen how the silky waterfall pictures has been come on the social media or the different websites. So I understand basically what is the trick they are using. So basically it's a long exposure, or you can call as a, in some of the cameras there is called as a shutter priority mode. So light actually, your camera sensor captures the light. So more timer you are keeping for the shutter to open, it captures more light. So it also captures the motions also. So so when you keep the shutter speed open for some more time, you can get this kind of travels or the movements which is happening around. So if you see this as a, like Sagar has showed one picture, for the Tokyo stations. The lights are showing the headlights. So if you see this, this is the backlight and the front light. So this is the waterfall which is flowing as a silky. So to capture these kind of images, or the different other options are also there, like traffic lights, lightning in the sky, the Milky Way now, which is very famous, or ocean where you have the silky ocean you want to see. You can capture these kind of images basically using the slow shutter speed. For that, some of the important factors or some of the important instrument is required. Tripod is the must, because normally when you click this picture, it shake the camera. So if when you turn it by hand without any support, it will rattle the camera sensor and it will not get the clear picture. So you require the tripod for that. So you don't require to capture this by directly putting your shutter speed, because even that when you actuate the shutter, that will also create a shake into the camera. So it is better to have the remote or cable actuator. Nowadays, most of the camera have the separate mobile apps. From mobile apps also you can control that shutter opening. And during the daytime, if you see, there is a lot of light is there. So we need to avoid the lights capturing, because when you open the shutter for a longer time, it will generate a lot of light. So you will not get the picture which is required. So to reduce that light, you can use as a ND filter. ND filter is called as a non-destructive filter. It will actually, they have the different types like ND2, ND4, or ND till ND10. That actually filters help to reduce the light. So if you see the hazing, or if you say there is a lot of light in during the midsummer, but still you want to capture the light which is required less as per your requirement, so you can use that ND filter for the on the in front of the lens. There are certain tricks are used like to create a like waterfall. This picture I taken around 1.5 seconds. So 1 to 2 seconds is required for the waterfall, silky waterfall capture. The light trails, or the you can say the lightning. When you want to capture the lightning, you will not able to put the camera and wait for the specific timing to capture the lightning to be happen. So it is better you can keep the shutter speed open for 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 15 seconds. And there are number of lightnings can happen into the sky. So you can get a good image of the lightnings also. Similar to this is a light trail of the traffic. So you can get around 10 to 15 seconds. If you capture, you'll get a lot of number of these lighting over there. Milky Way also is one of the very famous. For that also you require 15 to 20 second timing. But Milky Way is actually required where it's very less pollution is required there, because normally when you watch the sky, it is very difficult to see the Milky Way by open eye. So for that, camera also required some time and no pollution in the sky. So also the timing is important, right? Like at some time you require at night around 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Depending upon the location where you are capturing this Milky Way. So for that also, it is like some of the apps are there which guides you for that. And the star trails are also one of the famous, where you want to see that stars are moving around the some circle or the specific lines or the specific directions. So for that also you will require to capture from 1 minute to 1 hour also. So you can see the star trails, and there is actually for star trails there is a software also which required normally you need to click the pictures for the number of times, more number of pictures, and you need to join that pictures to get a 1 star trail photograph. So this is the basically slow shutter speed photography. I will move to the editing portion. Basically, why we need to edit the photograph? It is not bad if we edit the photograph, because sometimes the conditions of the photograph is not that much or condition of the situation is not that much great, but you want to show the picture which is to your audience where they want actual scenario. Many times the camera will not capture that actual scenario, but your eyes are capture that images in your mind. So you can convert that image which is captured by the camera to the image which is as per your eyes. So the basic funda is we don't need to over edit it so that it should not look like artificial. So if you see, this is a picture I taken in front of the Honda R&D gate while moving while moving through my mobile. So if you see the details in the sky and the surrounding, if I just little do the editing of this, remove the heads increase the little greenness of the grass and the blueness of the sky. This picture is how it is actually. But when I see this picture in the camera, because there is a windshield is there, so it will definitely create a haze in front of your camera. So this is how basically it's important, or I can say it is important for me to edit the picture. I'll share the basic process behind the editing. If you go into any places or when you capture the photograph, basically we just capture at that time and then do the processing. In that we want to actually create a photograph which we want to show to the world. So this is one of the things is important, is a cropping of the photograph. So if you see this photograph, it will not appeal that much, but if I crop this with the rule of third, I will get this as an image. So if you see the difference by seeing itself, you can feel the difference by just cropping this photograph. I have not edited anything this photograph, just by cropping to the rule of third, you can see the difference of the image, how it appears to your eyes. So this is the important of the cropping of the picture, which you can use in any software, not necessary to you need to use Adobe Lightroom, but cropping you can do in any of the software, photo editing software. So now I move to the Adobe Lightroom. This is one of the important feature in the Lightroom, which is called as a light. As Neil or Abhinay has mentioned, or Sagar has also mentioned, the light is an important factor in the photography, because sensor collect the light and it creates the information into the RGB format and it create a photograph. So when you are in the when you are in the photography world, or you can say when you are outside, you will get some photograph as overexposed, some photograph is underexposed, or some photographers are correctly exposed. As a professional photographer, they will do try to reduce the exposure which are overexposed during that settings. But as a hobbyist photographer, we will not get that time to correct that exposure on that time. So using these tools, you can correct that exposure. Also, there is one objective of the photograph. Is we need to see the picture which is same as our eyes. If you see the difference between the camera and our eyes, our eyes can see the dark as a dark, and or we can say even the foreground also you can see properly, and the background is also properly you can see by our eyes. But the camera will create the photograph as per the light available. So it might be at some time the foreground will not have that much light, but the background will have the more light. So using these tools, you can correct that picture similar to our eyes, or you can increase here we have the shadows, where you can increase the shadows so that the light will appear into the shadow area, and the foreground, or you can say foreground area. So basically, I will explain this in some format. Like exposure is the number of increase the light. Exposure basically increase the light into the picture. Contrast, it will reduce the darkness or increase the darkness into the picture. Highlight is the highlighted area, where you can see the sky where you have more light. So if you reduce that highlighted, like especially the clouded clouds. If you capture the clouds, and you will not see the clouds in the picture actually. So that is because the highlights are more. So if you reduce the highlights, you can see the beautiful sky or the beautiful clouds. Shadow, as I mentioned, if you require to increase the light into the foreground object, you can increase that shadow to by shadow. White also is like, if you don't have the light in some area, you can add that light by white, by increasing that whites, or reduce also. And similar to the black is like where you have the darkness. You can add the darkness or remove the darkness. So this is basically the light tool in the Adobe Lightroom. I will move little fast actually. This is the color tool. So basically color tone is also important into the picture. Basically there are RGB, you can say, but many times the picture will not capture as what we seen. Sometimes it appear as a dull. That is because the white balance. White balance is the important factor. Actually, when the camera see the white, it will not see exact white. It will see as a gray. So we need to tell the camera that this white is a white, this red is a red. So even though the sensor is there, but light conditions are not that much accurate. Because of that, the white balance will be not actually same as exactly what we want. So through the color tools, we can create, we can change that color toning of the picture. Like what we can say, the saturation is increasing the intensity of the color. The warmth is like when you have the blue tone or the red tone or orange tone. Basically when you have the daylight or when you have the evening time. Based on that, you can change this warmth of the photograph. Tint is basically change the tone of the color. So it will move from the red to the purple, or from the blue to the orange. So basically it will change the tone of the color. Skin tone is basically, it will just increase the warmness of the color, or it will decrease the warmness of the color. And deep blue is basically, it will increase the blueness into the color. So this is basically, these are some of the tools which is in the photograph, like Adobe Lightroom. It will also in the Snapseed also. You will get these tools in any of the photo editor. So this is like some of the tools. If you see into the Adobe Lightroom, I have basically these are the different options are there. So if you follow these two tools, just light and color tools, you will also see the major difference into the photograph. But there are, if you want to go in details, these are the different tools are there. I will share this presentation where I have given one link where it is very short, just within few minutes. He has shared all the options, how it works. So this is the presentation for me. So thank you, Avi, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Nilesh. Thanks for this wonderful presentation about slow shutter speed, post-processing, and photo editing tools of Adobe Lightroom. And as you guys are rightly said, for photography, you don't need like a very hi-fi cameras with your point and shoot, because I have seen like everyone started their journey with the point and shoot. So you just need that vision and skill set to make it happen. And second is like,
Hello.
I think he is having some connection issue, I guess.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I was thinking I got
my connection, but I think
गडबड झाली का
अविनाशला
हा.
काहीतरी connection issue.
नाही बहुतेक त्याचं डिस्कनेक्ट झालेलं दिसतंय.
बहुतेक disconnect झाले.
हा अविनाश
आला.
okay, sorry. Is it disconnected? Can you hear me now?
या सगळं व्यवस्थित
hear you.
Okay, so sorry, I don't know where I missed that, but thank you everyone for sharing their experience. everyone's journey was fantastic. And as you rightly said, you don't need like hi-fi cameras. You can go with your basic point and shoot initially, but you should have that skill set and that vision, and should have a visit to different places to get photos and at different locations and timing. So now floor is open. So please, if you have any questions, please go ahead. Thank you all.
Hi, it's Rustam here.
Yes.
I think मला वाटतं जेव्हा नीलनं बोलायला सुरू केलं आणि as the flow started and we finished with Nilesh, I think some of the questions that I had probably got answered by itself. So I think it's more to do with the practice. Though I have a bridge camera with 42x, what I call is a Nikon Coolpix, and now I realize how basic or how novice photographer I am. Though I have been nominated, or I'm one of 3 official photographers for our running club. So I know how basic of photography I'm doing, but I think I need to just learn and practice all the skills that these gentlemen have explained. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rustam.
I would like to, this is Umesh. I would like to appreciate Neil, Abhinay, Sagar and Nilesh for sharing and upgrading us to next level of photography. So thank you so much. I know Neil, you are a multi-talented person. This one session is not enough for you to elaborate about your skill sets. I request Kishore Dada to arrange one more session just for Neil to seek his guidance to the young talents who are going to about to going to college or going to college, and also the professionals who are in working right now. He could be the good source of guidance for all of us. So thank you, Neil. Thank you for sharing your another part of your hobby. Thank you so much. Then